Wardenting. If you are over 60 years old and you do this one thing on weekends, you need to stop watching whatever else you are doing and listen to me very carefully, because what I am about to tell you could save your life. I have seen too many patients wheel through my emergency room doors on Monday mornings, patients who were perfectly fine on Friday afternoon, patients who did this one thing over the weekend without knowing they were rolling dice with their lives. Margaret, 72 years old, retired school teacher from Cleveland, came to see me 3 months ago. She grabbed my hand and said with tears streaming down her face, "Dr. Harrison, nobody told me. Nobody told me that what I was doing every single weekend could have killed me." And she was right. Nobody told her. Nobody tells anyone. And that is exactly why I am telling you right now. Let me explain what I mean. Margaret had been a teacher for 41 years. She raised 3 children. She had 7 grandchildren who called her Nana and visited every Sunday for dinner. She walked 2 miles every morning, rain or shine. She watched what she ate. She took her medications exactly as prescribed. By every measure you could think of, Margaret was doing everything right. But every Friday night, Margaret did something that millions of people over 60 do without thinking twice. Something that seems so normal, so harmless, so much a part of how weekends are supposed to work, that nobody ever questions it. And one Saturday morning, Margaret woke up and could not move the left side of her body. Her husband found her on the bathroom floor, trying to call out for help, but unable to form words. The stroke had already begun. The clock was already ticking, and every second that passed, more of Margaret's brain was being damaged. She survived. Thank God she survived. But the Margaret who walks into my office now is not the same Margaret who walked in before. She drags her left foot. Her left hand curls inward. She speaks slowly, searching for words that used to come so easily. Words she spent 41 years teaching children to use. The woman who once stood in front of classrooms, commanding attention with her clear voice and quick wit, now pauses mid-sentence, frustrated, waiting for her brain to find a word that used to come automatically. Her husband told me that watching her struggle to say the word breakfast one morning broke his heart in a way he could not describe. And when I told her what caused it, when I explained the connection that nobody had ever explained to her before, she looked at me and asked the question I hear over and over again. "Doctor, why did nobody tell me this?" I am telling you now. Here is what happens. Imagine your body is like a house with very complicated plumbing. Your heart is the pump in the basement, pushing water through every pipe, every faucet, every fixture. Your blood vessels are those pipes, carrying life to every room. Now imagine that for 5 days a week, you run that pump at a steady, reliable rhythm. The water pressure stays consistent. The pipes handle it just fine. Everything works the way it should. But then imagine that every weekend, you suddenly change everything. You stay up much later than usual. You sleep in much longer than usual. You eat at completely different times. You might skip meals entirely, or eat meals that are twice as large as normal. What happens to that plumbing system? The pressure starts surging and dropping unpredictably. The pipes, especially the older ones, the ones that have been working hard for 60 or 70 years, start to strain under the inconsistency. Think of it another way. Imagine you work at a factory, and your job is to run a machine that operates best when it warms up slowly and runs at a steady speed. For 5 days you turn it on at the same time, let it warm up properly, run it at the same pace. The machine hums along beautifully, but then for 2 days you turn it on and off randomly. Sometimes you run it fast, sometimes you let it sit idle for hours and then suddenly demand maximum output. What happens to that machine? It starts to break down. Parts wear out faster, something eventually gives. This is exactly what happens inside your body when you do what I call weekend rhythm disruption. Robert, 68 years old, a retired firefighter from Milwaukee, learned this the hard way. He came to me after his second mini-stroke, what we call a warning stroke, the kind that resolves within hours, but tells you that a much bigger one is coming. Robert was a tough man. He had run into burning buildings for 35 years. He was not afraid of anything. But when I explained to him what was happening inside his body, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. He said to me, "Doc, I had no idea. I thought weekends were supposed to be when you rest. I thought I was doing the right thing. And here is the thing. Robert was resting. That was not the problem. The problem was how dramatically different his weekend rest looked compared to his weekday routine. During the week, Robert woke up at 6 in the morning. His body had done this for over 30 years. He ate breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. He went to bed at 10. Like clockwork, his body knew exactly what to expect. But on weekends, Robert would stay up until midnight watching old movies. He would sleep until 9 or 10 in the morning. He would skip breakfast entirely because he was not hungry. He would eat a huge brunch at 11. He might not eat again until 8 at night. To Robert, this felt like freedom, like reward, like the whole point of being retired. To his heart and blood vessels, it felt like chaos. It felt like the ground shifting beneath their feet every Friday night and not settling again until Monday morning. Let me explain why this matters so much for your stroke risk. Think of your body like an orchestra. Every instrument needs to play at the right time, in the right rhythm, for the music to sound beautiful. Your heart sets the tempo. Your hormones are the different instrument sections. Your blood pressure is like the volume of the whole performance. When you live on a consistent schedule, your body conducts this orchestra beautifully. It knows when to release the hormones that wake you up. It knows when to release the ones that make you hungry. It knows when to raise your blood pressure slightly to get you going in the morning and when to lower it at night so you can rest. But when you suddenly change your schedule by 2, 3, 4 hours on weekends, it is like telling the orchestra to play a completely different piece of music with no rehearsal. The violins come in early, the drums come in late, the whole thing becomes a mess of noise instead of music. And here is the dangerous part. One of the instruments in that orchestra controls how thick your blood is and how likely it is to clot. Another controls how stiff or flexible your blood vessels are. Another controls how hard your heart has to work to push blood through your system. When all of these get out of rhythm at the same time, you create the perfect conditions for something to go wrong. Let me give you one more image to help this stick. Think of your cardiovascular system like a river with a dam. The dam operators have learned exactly how much water to release and when. They know the rhythm of the seasons, the patterns of rainfall, the capacity of the river downstream. Now imagine every weekend someone new takes over the dam controls. They release too much water at the wrong time. They hold back too little. They create surges and droughts downstream that the riverbanks were never designed to handle. Eventually the riverbanks erode. Something breaks, and when it breaks catastrophically. That is your body on weekend rhythm disruption. Dorothy, 74 years old, a grandmother of 12 from Phoenix, sat across from me just last month. She had come in after what she described as the scariest morning of her life. She woke up on Sunday morning and could not see out of her right eye. It came back after about 20 minutes. She almost did not come in at all. She thought maybe she had just slept on it wrong, pressed on it funny with her pillow. But her daughter insisted, and thank goodness she did. What Dorothy experienced was a warning sign that a major stroke was on its way. The blood supply to part of her brain had been temporarily interrupted. Her body was sending her a message in flashing red lights, and she almost ignored it. When I asked Dorothy about her weekend habits, the pattern was exactly the same as Margaret and Robert. During the week, Dorothy was up at 5:30 to have coffee with her husband before he left for his part-time job. She ate at regular times. She was in bed by 9:30 because she liked to read for a while before falling asleep. On weekends, she said with a little laugh, her whole schedule went out the window. She would stay up past midnight talking with her sisters on the phone. She would sleep until 8 or 9. She would have a huge breakfast of pancakes and eggs and bacon because Saturday was treat day. She might not eat again until a late dinner. Dr. Harrison, she said, I have been doing this my whole life. How can it suddenly be a problem now? And that is the question everyone asks. How can something you have done for years suddenly become dangerous? Here is the answer, and I need you to really understand this. Think of your blood vessels like garden hoses. When those hoses are brand new, they are flexible. You can bend them, twist them, increase the pressure, decrease the pressure, and they bounce right back. They adapt to whatever you throw at them. But after years of use, after being left out in the sun and the rain and the cold, those hoses start to stiffen. They develop small cracks. They become less forgiving of sudden changes in pressure. Your blood vessels do the exact same thing as you get older. They become less flexible. They develop small areas of damage. They can no longer adapt as quickly to sudden changes. So the same weekend habit that your body handled just fine at age 40 or 50 becomes genuinely dangerous at age 60 or 70. Not because the habit changed, but because your body changed. And this is why I am begging you to listen. I had another patient, Thomas, 63 years old, a recently retired accountant from Minneapolis, who helped me understand how to explain this better. Thomas was a numbers man. He wanted data. He wanted logic. So I told him this. Thomas, imagine your blood vessels have a stress budget. When you were 40, that budget was large. You could spend it recklessly and still have plenty left over. You could handle 3-hour schedule shifts on weekends, big meals at odd hours, late nights followed by late mornings. But every year, that budget gets a little smaller. By 60, you are working with less margin for error. By 70, the budget is tight. You cannot afford to spend it carelessly anymore. Thomas nodded slowly. He understood, and he made the change. The solution is not complicated. It is not expensive. It does not require any medication or any surgery or any special equipment. It requires one thing, and I want you to understand exactly what it is before I tell you, because if you understand the why, you will actually do it. Think about what creates stability for anything in your life. Think about a plant in your garden. What makes it grow strong? Consistent water, consistent sunlight, a predictable environment where it knows what to expect. Think about a child. What helps a child thrive? Routine, knowing that breakfast happens at a certain time, that bedtime happens at a certain time, that the adults in their life are predictable and reliable. Your body works the exact same way. It thrives on consistency. It strengthens itself around what it can predict. And the solution, the one thing that I tell every single patient over 60 who walks into my office is this: keep your sleep and wake times within 1 hour of your weekday schedule every single day, including weekends. That is it. I know it sounds too simple. I know you are thinking, Dr. Harrison, that cannot possibly make that big of a difference. Let me tell you about Walter. Walter, 70 years old, retired bus driver from Detroit, came to me 2 years ago. His numbers were terrible. His blood pressure swung wildly from day to day. His morning readings on Mondays were consistently 20 points higher than his Tuesday readings. His heart rhythm showed irregularities that worried me deeply. Walter was a weekend warrior in the worst way. During the week, up at 5, on weekends, sleeping until 9 or 10. During the week, eating at regular times. On weekends, grazing all day on snacks and having one huge meal late at night. I sat Walter down and I explained to him exactly what I have explained to you. The orchestra metaphor, the garden hose analogy, the difference between a 60-year-old body and a 40-year-old body. And I gave him one instruction, not a dozen. Not a complicated plan, one instruction. Keep your sleep and wake times within 1 hour of your weekday schedule, 7 days a week. Walter looked at me like I had asked him to climb Mount Everest. Doc, he said, weekends are the only time I get to sleep in. You are asking me to give that up. And I told him what I am telling you. I am not asking you to give up rest. I am asking you to give up chaos. Sleep is not about total hours in a random pattern. Sleep is about rhythm, consistency, giving your body the predictable environment it needs to do its maintenance work properly. Think of it like this. Imagine you own a small business, and you have a cleaning crew that comes in every night to clean up, restock supplies, and prepare everything for the next day. But you never tell them when to come. Some nights you close at 5. Some nights you close at midnight. The cleaning crew never knows when they can do their work. What happens? The work does not get done properly. Corners get cut. Things pile up. Eventually the whole operation starts falling apart. Your body has its own cleaning crew. It has systems that repair damaged cells, clear out waste products, regulate your blood chemistry, and reset your cardiovascular system. These systems are programmed to work on a schedule. When you keep changing that schedule, the maintenance does not get done properly. And when the maintenance does not get done in your cardiovascular system, that is when strokes happen. Walter took my advice, not because he wanted to. He told me later that he grumbled about it for the first 3 weeks. His wife said he was like a bear with a sore paw, irritable and complaining. But then something happened. He started feeling better. His energy became more consistent throughout the week. The Monday morning grogginess that had plagued him for years disappeared. His blood pressure stabilized. When we checked his heart rhythm, the irregularities had reduced significantly. 6 months later, Walter sat in my office and said something I will never forget. Doc, I thought I was resting on weekends, but I was actually making my body work overtime to deal with all the changes. Now that everything is steady, I feel more rested than I have in years. Walter is now 72. He has had 0 cardiac events. His numbers look better than they did at 65, all because he stopped the weekend chaos. Now I want to tell you exactly how to do this, because knowing what to do is not the same as knowing how to do it. Think of resetting your weekend schedule like training a puppy. You cannot do it all at once. You cannot force it. You have to be patient and consistent, and eventually it becomes natural. If you currently wake up at 6 on weekdays and 9 on weekends, do not try to jump straight to 6 on Saturday. Your body will rebel, you will feel terrible, you will give up. Instead, move your weekend wake time back by 30 minutes each week. This week, wake up at 8:30. Next week, 8, The week after, 7:30. Within a month, you will be within that 1 hour window and your body will have adjusted gradually. The same goes for bedtime. If you currently go to bed at 10 on weekdays and midnight on weekends, start going to bed at 11:30 this weekend. Then 11. Then 10:30. Here is another practical tip that my patients have found helpful. Create a weekend morning routine that makes waking up earlier feel like a reward, not a punishment. Maybe you make yourself a special cup of coffee that you only have on weekend mornings. Maybe you sit outside and listen to the birds for 15 minutes before anyone else is awake. Maybe you read the newspaper in your favorite chair with no interruptions. The goal is to stop thinking of sleeping late as the treat and start thinking of a peaceful, consistent morning as the treat. Eleanor, 66 years old, a retired bank manager from Boston, used exactly this method. She had been a night owl her entire life, and weekends were her time to indulge that tendency. When I first suggested consistent sleep times, she actually laughed at me. "Dr. Harrison," she said, "I have been staying up late on weekends since I was a teenager. You think I can change that now?" I told her she did not have to change overnight, just gradually, just 30 minutes at a time. 8 weeks later, Eleanor was keeping her schedule within an hour all week long. And she told me something interesting. "I thought I loved staying up late," she said, "but what I actually loved was the feeling of freedom, of doing something different from the work week. Once I retired, every day was technically free. I was holding on to a pattern that did not even make sense anymore, and it was hurting me." Eleanor's blood pressure dropped 15 points. Her morning headaches disappeared. The heart palpitations she had been experiencing on Monday mornings stopped entirely. She told me that she started a new Saturday morning tradition. She wakes up at the same time as always, makes herself tea, and works on a jigsaw puzzle for an hour before her husband wakes up. She said it has become her favorite part of the week. Now I know some of you are thinking about special occasions. What about holidays? What about when the grandchildren visit and everyone stays up late? What about that once-a-year trip where everything is different? And here is my answer. Life happens. I am not asking you to become a robot. I am asking you to make consistency your default, not the exception. Think of it like healthy eating. If you eat well 90% of the time and have a piece of cake at your granddaughter's birthday party, you will be fine. But if you eat cake every weekend while eating healthy during the week, the pattern itself becomes the problem. One weekend a year where your schedule gets disrupted is not going to hurt you, but 52 weekends a year of dramatic rhythm disruption, that is what doubles your stroke risk. That is what I see in my emergency room on Monday mornings. That is what I am begging you to stop. Patricia, 71 years old, a retired nurse from Nashville, understood this immediately because she had spent her career watching the patterns. She said to me, "Dr. Harrison, I worked the Monday morning shift for 20 years. I always wondered why we had so many emergencies at the start of the week, so many heart attacks, so many strokes. I thought it was just stress about going back to work, but this makes so much more sense." Patricia was right to notice the pattern. Monday mornings are the most dangerous time of the week for cardiovascular events, and for people over 60, the danger is even higher. It is not because Monday is cursed. It is because millions of people spend their weekends disrupting the rhythms their bodies depend on, and then Monday morning arrives and the body has to suddenly snap back to a completely different schedule. It is like asking that orchestra to switch from playing a waltz to playing a march in the middle of a song. The transition itself creates chaos, and in an older cardiovascular system, that chaos can be deadly. Let me tell you about one more patient, because his story shows why this matters so much. George, 69 years old, a retired postal worker from Philadelphia, came to me not because of his own health scare, but because of his brother's. His brother had suffered a massive stroke at age 71, the kind that leaves you needing help with everything, the kind that means you will never live independently again. George sat in my office with tears in his eyes. He said, "Dr. Harrison, I watched my brother go from a man who could do everything to a man who needs help getting dressed. I cannot let that happen to me. My wife depends on me. My grandchildren depend on me. Tell me what to do." So I told him about weekend rhythm disruption. I asked about his schedule, and of course the pattern was there, just like all the others. George made the change immediately. No gradual transition for him. He set his alarm for 6:15 on Saturday morning and never looked back. He said the image of his brother, struggling to button his own shirt, was all the motivation he needed. That was 18 months ago. George is now 70. His numbers are excellent, his heart rhythm is steady, and every time he sees his brother being wheeled around by a caregiver, he thinks about that 6:15 alarm. He told me, "Dr. Harrison, That alarm is the most important thing I do all week. It is not about sleep. It is about my future. It is about being there for the people who love me. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine your future. Imagine yourself at 80 years old, sitting on a porch with your grandchildren, fully present, fully capable, fully alive. Imagine being able to walk to the kitchen and make yourself a cup of coffee. Imagine being able to drive to the store, to pick up a grandchild from school, to live your life on your own terms. Now imagine the alternative. Imagine being in a rehabilitation facility, learning how to speak again, learning how to walk again, watching your grandchildren visit, and knowing that things will never be the same. Imagine needing help with the most basic tasks. Imagine losing the independence you have worked your whole life to build. The difference between those two futures could come down to something as simple as what time you wake up on Saturday morning. That is not an exaggeration. That is what I have seen. In over 30 years of practice, the small, consistent choices add up. The weekend chaos adds up. The body keeps score. Margaret, the retired schoolteacher I told you about at the beginning, she is doing better now. Not fully recovered, but better. She works with a speech therapist twice a week. She does physical therapy. She is fighting hard to get back what she lost. But she says the same thing every time she sees me. If I had known, she tells me, if someone had just told me, I would have set my alarm for 6:30 on Saturday morning and never thought twice about it. That is such a small price to pay. It is a small price, and I am asking you to pay it. Starting this weekend, I want you to think about your wake time on Saturday morning. Whatever time you usually get up during the week, set your alarm for 1 hour later at the absolute most. I know it feels like giving something up, but what you are actually doing is giving something to yourself. You are giving yourself stable blood pressure, consistent heart rhythm, blood vessels that are not being stressed by unpredictable changes. You are giving yourself more years, more birthdays, more holidays with your family, more mornings to wake up and be grateful you are still here. Richard, 75 years old, a retired carpenter from Cincinnati, told me something last month that has stuck with me. Dr. Harrison, he said, I used to think retirement meant I could finally do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, but I realized that what I really want is to be alive and healthy enough to enjoy it. And if keeping a steady schedule is what gives me that, then it is not a restriction, it is a gift. Richard is right. This is not about taking away your freedom. This is about protecting your ability to enjoy that freedom for as long as possible. Let me leave you with one final thought. Your heart has beaten approximately 2.5 billion times by the time you reach 70 years old. 2.5 billion beats, pumping blood through your body, keeping you alive through every moment of your life. Your heart is not asking for much. It is not asking for expensive treatments or complicated interventions. It is asking for one simple thing: rhythm, consistency, a predictable schedule that lets it do its job without having to constantly adjust to chaos. Give your heart what it is asking for. Keep your weekend within 1 hour of your weekday schedule. Wake up at the same time. Go to bed at the same time. Let your body find its rhythm and stay there. Margaret would tell you to do it. Robert would tell you to do it. Dorothy and Walter and Eleanor and Patricia and Richard and George would all tell you to do it. They learned the hard way. You do not have to. This weekend, set that alarm. Make the commitment. Your heart will thank you. Your brain will thank you. Your family will thank you. And maybe years from now you will look back and realize that this was the moment everything changed. The moment you decided to stop playing dice with your health. The moment you chose consistency over chaos. The moment you chose life. If you found this helpful, share it with someone you love. Share it with your spouse, your siblings, your friends. Because everyone over 60 deserves to know this. Everyone deserves the chance to make this choice before it is too late. And if you are watching this and you are not yet 60, share it with your parents. Share it with your grandparents. Give them this gift. Because the people we love deserve to be here for as long as possible. Take care of yourself. Take care of your heart. And I will see you in the next one.